So maybe ground driving Winslow. This is a pretty condensed version of the ground driving. And it's really not bad. Like there's different things that I would definitely change, but it's just not a bad process. I would just slow it down and break it down a little bit more. So if you want to see that broken down version, you can look at Dakota's. It's a little bit more broken down, but again, she's a pretty chill horse, so I could kind of group things together for her, and she understood that. Um, I'd have to think about the other horses there. It's broken down more, but I would just kind of search ground driving and see if you can find like other stuff with it. But anyways, we're just gonna kind of cruise through this and condense it. Pretty much we've already taught Winslow to respond to rope pressure, so I had that rope go around like his hocks, and then he would just follow it around in a circle and come all the way around and face me. That is a big important prerequisite to this lesson. That has to be done first because when you're ground driving, they have to move away from that rope and not just spin around and try to face you because they'll get tangled up and they could get scared, and we don't want that. So all I've done now is just attach that outside rein and then I've have just the regular lunge line on the inside, and we're just gonna start doing some ground driving. So what I would change about this now is I would flip that. So I would have that inside rein go up through the stirk single first and then just not have that outside rein, and I would start with that just because it's gonna be a little bit closer to lunging than this. And then the other thing that I would do, which I do with some of the other horses, but I guess I didn't with him because I thought he was fine, was desensitizing with the rope. But I didn't have it attached to him, so I thought I wasn't going to do it. But I need to make sure that they're cool with the rope moving, swinging around. Like I'll toss it up over his back, over his hindquarters. But I don't want to do it while this rope is attached to his halter, even like especially not the bit. But yeah, I want to make sure that it was just like clipped to the surcingle instead. But I and I could have started that off with just a little bit more less intensity than that. He's doing good. Like it's not like a big deal. I would like him to keep moving forward, but see, I'm just kind of tossing it over his hindquarters here. Um, like he's cool with that. That's gonna be normal reaction. Is they're gonna stop. They're gonna be like, "What do you want?" Because every other time when I've been tossing ropes on him or this lash of the stick or whatever, he's supposed to stop and stop moving. That's what he thinks I want. So that's a pretty typical reaction. So it's just kind of send him forward because I do want him to move while the ropes are moving around and while the ropes on his hocks and stuff like that. But I would definitely take my time again, like do some just desensitizing, just some sessions on only desensitizing, attaching that rope to the surcingle, having it toss up and down above, like on his back, like right behind his neck, going up over his hips and then again on his hocks and then doing that at the walk and the trot. So I just did that like right away and just kind of hope for the best. With Winslow, it was fine. He's a quiet horse. I could have broken it down and it could have like went a little bit smoother, and he would have understood a little bit better, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world. But I would be careful with the horse that's a lot more sensitive than he is to definitely not do that. So like if I was ground driving the Mustangs, this is not anywhere where I would start. It would be just reviewing ropes and then getting the surcingle on and then building all those little steps. So depends on the horse, but I would just be realistic on what your horse is like so you don't clump too many things together and then the horse is scared and then we really have to go back and then we still have that fear in there, so we're worse off than where we started. We don't want that. So now I'm just switching the lines. So I'm going to do the same thing going the other way. I just attached that left rein and then put it through the surcingle. And then I'm going to have him go the other direction and do the same exact thing that I was doing just on the other side. Again, I would not be attaching that outside left rein to the halter at this point. I just want to put it on the surcingle so that I can do this desensitizing and I don't pull on his face. But he learned that pretty quickly. Like as soon as I started shaking that line that's in my left hand, that you could see his tail swish, and he went into that trot. But then he was like, "Oh, okay, it's just that desensitizing." He was fine with it, or somewhat fine with it. So he did figure that out pretty quickly. Like he looks pretty good. Um, I think he would have responded better if I didn't do all like the flooding slash desensitizing that I did before. Because now he's just like every time something moves, I just kind of have to stop and like not pay attention to it. So, but overall, like he's still listening to my cues and he really doesn't seem concerned with the ropes at all. Like those are going to be the horses where you're going to have the harder time with because you're going to have to spend a lot more time getting him used to those ropes and working on that because that's going to be a huge part of it. So then I guess at this point I thought that was plenty of desensitizing. And then I went and put both reins on. Really, like, he doesn't seem that worried about it. I do worry a little bit that he's just kind of shut down. Um, but like if I were doing it over, obviously I would do a lot more steps and then I would be adding in positive reinforcement. But realistically, like he doesn't look bad here. Not too bad, not compared to some of the other videos. So what's important with the ground driving is making sure that he doesn't turn like toward me. I want to keep it on that circle at first. Like here, he's just kind of ground driving, but we're on a circle, so it's something familiar. He knows how to do that from lunging. He's still a little confused because it's going to feel different, especially when you're training horses to lunge and then yield their hindquarters to you to face you. That's going to be pretty ingrained, and they're going to want to do that, and they can't really do that with the lines. So that's one of those things that can become an issue. So you really have to get the horses solid on turning away from you. So I like to start with just like a little turn. That was actually pretty nice there. And he can kind of turn around, and that was pretty good. Like he didn't get worried. He just kind of figured it out and went the other direction. Most horses are not going to be that quiet about it. He did do pretty good. I would also recommend using a longer line. This is really short. I'm probably a little too close to him. So yeah, definitely use some drive lines or some longer lunge lines. That left um, or the right drive line is too short. But yeah, you can see the importance there of him turning away from me there, and the importance of him responding to that rope pressure because you're going to need that. Really, once he can turn away both sides like that, I'm pretty solid. We can go off the circle and he can start steering a little bit. So that looks pretty good as long as he's not going to turn and face me and he can follow that rope. So he wants to kind of turn and face me here. I'm going to ask him to go forward, and then I can use that outside right rein or left rein and have him turn away. So those are going to be kind of your cues to get him. That looks really nice. He probably had been ground driven in the past. I don't know. Um, I didn't know that when I got him. Like, it's just one of those situations where I don't really know his history. So, but if I would bet, I would bet he has had this in the past. So this looks pretty good. It looks fairly relaxed here. I like this versus a lot of the other things I've done with him. This looks pretty good. He stops well, like, and really ground driving is good even if your horse is saddle trained. So like with Winslow's case, he came saddle trained, but I just didn't know the extent of it. I saw the other person ride him when I bought him. I rode him a little bit when I bought him, and he seemed like he understood the basic commands. But when you're ground driving them, you can really get a good feel for that, and you don't have to be on their back. So I really do like the ground driving, um, and I still use that. So it's a good prep exercise so that you really know what you're going to get out of their saddle. So I get my lines figured out again. I think I put a longer line on him so that I didn't have that really short one. And then I'm asking him to go forward again. It's going to be really normal for them to have that stop and start stuff. And then I'm going to start kind of going out in a little bit more straight lines, a little bit less turning. It's really important that you organize your lines. You don't want to get tangled up in them. You don't want to get them wrapped around your hands or your legs or anything like that. Um, they're kind of messy in this video. Now, when I'm ground driving, I like to just have both lines just loose, and I usually just have both of them and go like between my legs so that when I'm walking, I kind of have them, and they're not just kind of all over the place getting stuck on stuff. But then they're on the ground and they're not looped up in my hands because I just thought that was a little bit too much for me to handle at this point. Like I have this one, that right longer one, just kind of laid over my hand. That's totally fine. But I found it, yeah, like now I kind of let the line go. It's a little bit easier for me to just use it while the extra is just on the ground there. So, and that right line is a pretty good length. So I want him to kind of steer here. So you can see he kind of really wanted to pull to the left there, and then I'm just kind of holding and waiting him to go to the right. I could have definitely used less pressure again, and just kind of held and wait. Like that was better, but again, less pressure, not so much pulling, just kind of a more of a hold and less of a pull. So, um, but his steering looks decent. Really, again, he doesn't need to be trotting at this point. I would definitely work on some more steering and stopping before I would ask for the trot. He doesn't trot super fast, but most horses are going to trot faster than that, and it speeds things up and it makes things more difficult just with your rein handling, your steering, everything. So I would definitely not do that. You got to be careful with the surcingle too. When you run the lines through it, it can act as like a little bit of a pulley and have a stronger effect on their face. So you got to be careful of that. You could see he was really overbent then when I asked him, like there, he really overbends in his neck. You really got to get them going forward. So I also could have used like a stick or something to get him going forward. The forward is really important too though. So it's not just all about the steering. So but decent lesson. Again, I would break it down and make things a little bit easier for him and not do so much all at once, but really not too bad.